This is Dr. B, host of The Dr. B Show and founder of Borja Consulting Group, a company that helps businesses grow through strategy, branding, and marketing. And today's guest is Emily McSherry, entrepreneur, career exploration advocate, and the founder and CEO of Advise, a platform helping students navigate one of the biggest challenges after college, figuring out what comes next.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Dr. B Show. I'm here with the great Emily McSherry. Emily, how you doing?
Good, Dr. B, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. This will air TBD, but I know it's a nice spring day. Let's jump right into it. Tell everyone about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I guess the quick story is I'm a Southwest gal. Grew up in rural Texas, and then my family has a five-generation farm in New Mexico. Went to high school, college in Arizona, and then moved out to LA for 10 years. Really grew up a very competitive athlete, also avid school nerd, like love school. And I was also competitive saxophonist back in the day. So I think all those things were just kind of built into me, and I just love doing a lot of stuff. Also, the oldest of four. So I have very oldest child, oldest daughter tendencies, um, which may or may not have contributed to everything else I've done, but I think so. And yeah, in school, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. I ended up getting a free tuition scholarship to the University of Arizona, which was great. Did a double business major there. And then kind of along my journey, I, I tried a lot of stuff, right? And I thought I did kind of like all the right stuff, did a ton of internships, you name it, but I still left college feeling super confused and overwhelmed about my career and almost like starting at the bottom again, even though I'd done all this great stuff. And kind of got lucky on a job that I found. It wasn't a typical job. It was in Los Angeles in a new market that was growing. So kind of like the gig economy for consulting. Took that job, spent about 7, 10 years in recruitment. Toward the end there, the recruitment industry, doing lots of different things from sales, learning and development, operations, project management. And then toward the end there, got my MBA like around COVID years. Good times.
COVID
And
MBA.
yeah, the COVID MBA was an interesting one.
Was
Luckily, I
it
was doing a
all was
part-time
it all
program.
virtual, I assume? And was there any interaction in person at all, even graduation, or if that?
Yes, for a long time, I was really preparing to do a full-blown 2 year MBA with no work, but then I ended up getting a job I really liked, and UCLA offers one of the top part-time programs. So I figured, hey, why don't I just stay here, keep the job, keep making money, etc. So long story short, the first year was online, the last two were virtual, but a lot of people kind of got screwed if they did the 2 years, right? Because either their whole first year, or their whole second year was virtual. And then I got a unique opportunity in business school that I really took advantage of, which was you have a capstone project. And during that capstone project, you could either consult for a global company, which I was like, maybe, or you could start something with the team, like a real business, right? Make a business plan. And I was very drawn to that. So I just kind of landed in that. And I pitched around an idea that I had that I was kind of like sitting on for a while. My friends ultimately wanted to do it, so we had a year and a half of kind of all these brains working on this really cool idea, this concept, and then I started winning a few pitch competitions, and then all of a sudden I was like, I want to wake up kind of doing this and nothing else, and so I did go for it, and I've been doing it full time now for about 2.5 years since then.
Wow, what an awesome journey. What started as an idea, something you had in the back burner, and then you use it as a capstone, and then now you're doing it full time as a business. I love
Yeah, my business school loves that too.
that.
I think I'm the only one that's still out and kicking. So
Good, good,
yeah.
good, good. I did my MBA, probably like a while ago, and I remember it was on like solar. This is when solar was a beginning,
Oh,
and now
mm.
look what it is now. It's at the forefront, but it's cool. But it's cool that I like to hear stuff like that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, you spoke about education. You spoke about full ride. You went to UCLA, University of Arizona. How did education shape you? What you're doing today?
Yeah, I'm such a education. I love education and in any format. Um, Even before answering that question, I think for me, my family instilled it so much in me, like, inspired me to go to college, trying classes, doing a bunch of stuff. And I just loved learning, honestly. And my great grandparents, like kind of that generation, were teachers. And my grandpa didn't get the chance to go to college because of the war and stuff like that, but he still acquired knowledge by trying to learn like every book he couldn't read, every book he could in the library, that kind of stuff, and ended up getting an honorary PhD. So I was kind of inspired by and excited about it. Um, and so my particular experiences, right, I'm also in this industry with my startup, and I'll acknowledge that it's changing rapidly, right? And I would say classic university knowledge is getting a lot of scrutiny. It's getting a lot of like backlash and all that sort of stuff. And I think that's really because of this disconnect between degree and job, right? But I don't think education and job are necessarily like those are kind of two different things for me. Um, and so education is something someone can't take away from you, like acquiring that knowledge. It's not like money or a job or something like that's something you did. And it puts you in an environment where you have all these other experiences besides just the academic, which I think are really, really important, such as meeting people. When as part of my startup, we interview professionals about their job, and that's the core content of our platform now with over 12,000 videos. How did I get the first 200 people? I I literally messaged everyone I knew from undergrad at U of A. And I also reached out to all my business school friends, right? And people were like, "Oh yeah, of course, I'm happy to help you." And if I didn't have that, network, then it would have been a lot harder. So I would say incredibly valuable. Undergrad versus graduate school are very different experiences, but both, I would say, the networking, the experience, and also that sense of pride or accomplishment for getting something done is huge. And kind of what we were talking about earlier with, oh, that's awesome. Like you got your business degree and you did the program and then you did the thing. And so I think education is that opportunity for you to use resources and do something with it, right? And I think a lot of people complain about, oh, my university didn't do enough for me, enough for me. But a lot of those resources are just kind of like sitting right there for you. A lot of it's
There, right?
free.
Career
So
services or
like
whatever, they're just there.
it's there. So like use it, and not everyone starts at the same level, but get what you can out of what you got, right? Whether that's community college, whatever. Um, because it'll help you go places, in my opinion.
I agree with you 1,000%. Totally different experiences for me as well. Undergrad, although I didn't, I went to a commuter school, but still, like, total different experience. Right, going full time, full time as far as on paper, and then working part time, and then no responsibilities versus MBA, job, commuting in the evening, and have some sort of responsibility. Yeah, so I get it. I totally understand that, and yeah, and then. I agree with you as well. Like the networking piece is huge. Like I'm still in touch with a lot of folks from both undergrad and grad for that matter. So I don't think if similar to you, like whenever I have an event, I freaking reach out to my entire network and say, hey, if you support, come here, do this, do that. And I think the education, not maybe not necessarily the degree and all that stuff. Yeah, that's fine and dandy, but I think if anything else, the network is very important, right? So I agree with you there. So. Yeah, and
Yeah,
we'll
and a lot
chat
of
more about like the disconnect in a little bit. So I don't want to spoil
sure, sure. Yeah.
it. So before we dive into your business, right? I'm big in volunteering, right? Not kumbaya volunteer, but volunteering, right? I'm part of a board now that helps with Latinos and mental health, right? I've also in the past was on a board with Prospanica, helping Hispanic professionals get ahead when it comes to scholarships, when it comes to professional development and getting them jobs. I know you also volunteer for your sorority and for another network in the past. Regardless, how important is volunteering to you? Or how, I'm sorry, let me rephrase it. Let me How important is volunteering for someone's career? That's what I meant to say.
Sure. That's how I was going to answer it
Yeah,
anyways.
yeah, yeah.
So here's the way I would look at experience in general, right? Because you get hired mainly because of experience. Um, and so I think volunteering is one of those pillars that, or where you can get experience, um, doing different roles tied into whatever you're passionate about. I mean, it's kind of like a win-win, honestly. And if you study the science of happiness, or if you've ever, looked into that, I took a class in business school on that. Volunteering is very tied to making people happy. Like it makes you feel good. If you can give some time, it helps you feel grateful for helping others or things that, people, causes in need. So I think it can be a great way for if you're like, I have no experience, how am I going to get a job? Like go think about what you're excited about, or even if you have no idea what you're excited about, you have to try something to figure that out. You can't just sit around looking on TikTok thinking like complaining.
Complaining
Right?
and
You
having
gotta
it
go
come to
take
you,
the
right?
Yeah, you gotta go take some action. And guess what? Worst case scenario, you learn something, right? Like that's not quite for me. Um, but you can tell a story now, like, oh, I did. And that's what I did with my sorority volunteering experience back in the day is, I didn't have a ton of work experience by the time I graduated. I had internships, but I could say, hey, I chose to, my sorority sisters thought I'd be really great at this role for philanthropy. And so I decided, even though I was very busy with the double major, to step into that role and plan these events. I was able to help raise, $50,000 for Alzheimer's. And that really, I actually failed at a couple events completely because I tried to do too much on my own, but it taught me how to delegate. And now I know how to do that. And also, my grandpa had Alzheimer's. So it was like a really great experience. And now I know how to do this kind of leadership. So it helps you like interview for stuff and tell stories about something you did, right? Instead of like, well, I haven't done anything. Please hire me. So,
Exactly. I agree with you 1,000%. Like I always say, it's a great resume builder, especially like early in your career, and even for experienced folks. Like I'll give you an
yeah.
example. Let's say you do, which will segue to the next question. Let's say you do recruiting and you do X, Y, and Z, but maybe you want exposure in marketing and or other things.
Mhm.
Volunteering, especially for a board, is a great opportunity to, like you said, build your resume and build those skills so that you could go for that next role. So. I
Yep.
love it. We're in agreement there. Um, you also spoke about this earlier in your first question, right? So you do have experience in recruiting, Michael Page, et cetera, right? So in what you're doing now, how has that experience helped you?
Yeah, when I talk to experienced professionals, and you probably feel this way as well, but like looking back, your story makes sense,
Yeah,
right? Like, you take little parts of this, and it
same
all
here.
kind
Yeah,
of
yeah. I cherry
one day
picked you.
you're
Boom,
like,
boom, boom, and
wow, like
right.
that's me.
Exactly, exactly.
And so that for me was, several things. I would say it's like the people I met at those different companies, right? And then it was also the skills, the knowledge, and then also the problem and just like the actual idea for my company came from my experience also. So my first job, I went into a cold calling sales job because I knew if I was going to be an entrepreneur, I'd have to figure that out, and it was pretty
I
like
did that.
terrifying
I
and
didn't like it.
terrible.
I did that on my first role. I was like, oh, but I get it. I get it. But it made me a better person now.
Yes. I mean, when you're 21 or 20 and you're calling the chief strategy officer at Starbucks and they take your call and they meet with you, that gives you a sort of confidence and like grueling torture that makes entrepreneurship kind of like normal. Um, so that was my first job, and we did like 500 cold calls a day, and I was calling director to C-suite executives next to like the C-suite for our company. And I'd say that my first job actually gave me so much knowledge because we were doing consulting projects across the Fortune 500. So not only was I learning the sales side of why a company would hire a consultant, which kind of opens up a whole ball game of business that you don't learn. I had to talk to a chief strategy officer and like why they should meet with us about how this person who used to be at McKinsey or in consulting could solve their problem for a cheaper price than whoever. And that's like pretty high level intellectual business, knowledge. So that really opened my brain, I would say. And then I had all this access to some of the best talent in the country. So, so I saw people who were making $5,000 a day on projects. And I started noticing these patterns, and you notice a lot of patterns in recruitment because you're analyzing people's resumes, you're analyzing people's LinkedIn's. I saw, wow, we pretty much don't want to talk to anyone unless they have a top business degree. That's interesting. Maybe I should get one of those. Um, and so, yeah, kind of moving on. I after that, I worked in a public recruitment company where I did learning and development and training. So that really taught me how to work with global audiences from different cultures, how to get everyone learning, customized learning. So that's kind of where my passion for learning and education I was able to weave it into what I was doing. Then I worked at a startup, built a learning program and onboarding program from scratch. So learned a ton there as well. So yeah, I would say that the skills, the people, and then also this knowledge of, I wish people had this understanding of how the business world and recruitment works a lot earlier, because I think we would all make different choices. And we're not learning any of this in school, even as a double business major. This None of this made sense to me until I got out into the workforce, which felt kind of wrong.
I agree with you there. It took me like almost 15 years to find myself, right? But and a lot of, yeah, I agree. A lot of school, what they teach is very theoretical or not practical, right? Or even like something like
Yeah.
sales, they should highlight more, or like raising capital, they should highlight more, which I don't think they do enough of. But that's my
Hmm.
opinion. That's you know. So no, no, very great points, my friend. Um, yeah, and similar to what we discussed earlier, whether for good, bad, or ugly, you get that experience and you cherry pick a little bit, and then you come out of blender, and now you what you're doing now, right? So, which segues into my next question is, you spoke about the origins a little bit, but tell us about Advise itself. What is it about?
Yeah, so Advise exists to solve the problem that work and jobs right now exist behind a black box. Right now, if you or me, Dr. B, wanted to go buy some jeans on Amazon, we could go watch reviews, we could hear what people thought, we could know where they wore them and why they bought them. But right now, if you try to do that for careers, it doesn't really exist, right? Like you could go to YouTube, read a bunch of stuff on LinkedIn, text just job descriptions, but a lot of that doesn't really, it's not giving that firsthand experience of like, what is it like to be an entrepreneur? What is it like to be an engineer? And obviously, podcasts can be a great way for that, but particularly for students, they don't have a lot of time, right? Like they don't have time to be sitting through tens of hundreds of these to really acquire what I would consider the baseline knowledge to make a confident career decision about what they want to do. So, my idea after my first job was, okay, we have this network of consultants for projects. Why don't we have this network of professionals for students, right? Like, why don't we just let them talk to each other? And very quickly, that idea of live connection was thrown out the door because it's just kind of hard, right? Like, I think a lot of people try to do mentorship, and the people that students need to talk to are very busy. And so, and also because they're very busy, they probably need some sort of like money, right? And students don't really have that. And we wanted to give something to students in kind of like a pro bono or a free way. And then I was just kind of chatting and brainstorming with one of my career coaches at business school, and we were like, well, what about video? Why don't we just kind of flip this idea on its head? And then it kind of hit me like, why don't we do a coffee chat or an informational interview on video to the masses and make it very structured, very easy to use, and kind of go from there. So that's what we did, because these informational interviews or a coffee chat are the answer to how students are supposed to be connecting with professionals, not only to get jobs, like the networking side, but also a lot of you probably have kids out there who are listening to this. And what would you do if your kid wants to go into pharmacy and you don't know a pharmacist or whoever, maybe you know one, and you're like, let me go call up my friend Joe or Barbara, whatever, and talk to her, you know? And if you're lucky, your kid can do that and they will learn so much from that conversation. But the problem is 10 of those conversations usually take a student over 25 hours to set up, do, and execute. They don't have the skill, and the skill's getting worse. Um, so basically, we went to the top schools in the country. We went to their career center websites, and I literally just downloaded questions students are supposed to be asking in these interviews from guides, consolidated it down into 13 questions that we call the Advice 13. And we ask everybody the same questions during an interview. So it'd be like, hey, Dr. B, walk me through your career path to how you got to where you are now. That one question and answer would become one video, along with the other 12. And so a student for the first time could say, hey, I'm majoring in psychology. I'm first generation, so I want to hear from someone who's first generation. And I want to hear about, who thrives in the wellness industry from anyone who majored in what I'm majoring in. And you can hear those clips back to back in 5 minutes instead of maybe never hearing it ever. And then the system also gets smarter as you watch. You tell it if you like something, don't like something. We, of course, use AI to analyze transcript data and nudge students to certain content and modules and videos that, when they type in something, we just like run it against the transcripts and populate this customized experience. And then we have all this reporting on the background. So for an institution like, let's say ASU is one of our big clients, the business school there, we know what their students are clicking on. We know how much they're watching, who they're watching. And then we also have this tool where like let's say somebody is a career coach or an advisor, or they're teaching a class of a couple thousand students. On our platform, they can go in and customize what we call a career assignment, saying, hey, we want a student to watch 20 minutes of content on Advise. We want them to watch this particular content, and then we want them to answer XYZ questions to reflect and think about it and implement like what they're learning, such as how could, after watching these videos, how likely are you to stay in your major? Or after watching these videos, what feels right or what feels wrong? Or after watching these, how can you go have a better real conversation with a real person? And that one link can go out to unlimited, any number of students, and they all get a custom experience tied to what they're interested in. And then the school gets all the reporting and analytics without that one person trying to explain all the possible industries and all the possible jobs for all these students. So that's what we really do at a core level.
I love it. How does this address? I think you alluded to this earlier. This is just a follow-up question.
Mhm.
How how is it better than like a traditional mentorship program? Is it the fact that you could like speak one to many as opposed to one on one, or like you said, being able to depend on the mentor and his or her or their schedule, and you have to compensate them and all that. Is that how is this better than that?
They're just different, right? We're before that, I would
Okay.
say. Mentorship and live is 100% needed and
Right.
very valuable.
Got it.
We're like this step before where maybe you don't know who to mentor with, or like
That is
maybe you
true.
don't
That's
know
true.
what internship to get or where
That's
to
true.
volunteer.
That's true.
This is really focusing on the learning side and like the information side at scale, before you go decide your major, before you go take that job, or before you go interview, I would say.
Nah, that's a good point, right? I like that because then you don't want to be stuck in an internship or a job you hate, and then 10 years later regret regret it and be stuck.
Well, and it happens so often. And, one of the unique things that we do is we hire students, mostly underserved, we pay them,
Yeah.
and they're the ones who do the interviews for us as well, right? And so, um, a lot of them, through this experience of the internship and using the platform, a lot of them are like, oh, I want to go to law school. And then very quickly after talking to a lawyer or watching a couple of things, they're like, either like heck yes or heck no from
Exactly.
a simple video. And yesterday I was doing a demo with a private liberal arts college, their academic advising team. And we were talking about where to use this tool. And they're like, well, usually if someone's interested in marketing, we suggest taking a couple classes. And I'm like, great. How about you get them to watch a couple people talking about marketing before they sign up and spend all this money to
And
go into
spend whatever thousands per credit. Exactly. Does it make sense?
and also, like, you have never been in marketing. So
Right.
maybe you should tap into people who are doing marketing and it'll make
Yeah,
your life a lot easier and you'll be more effective. And then the student will feel a lot better. So,
I agree. Oh my God. Oh my God. Uh, that's a pet peeve of mine. But you're right. I love it. I love it. I love it. Your thing. I think your advice addresses all that. You spoke about yes. Coming from a family of educators, so I love that. But like similar to me, like I'm first gen Latino, graduate, but I didn't have any formal like my dad or mom weren't entrepreneurs or in education per se. So I know. So my question to you is, how did like I know although you have no role models, I believe, regarding entrepreneurship, or if you did, let me know. But how does it shape you for your entrepreneurship drive?
yeah. And a lot of that role model question, I did, both my parents did go to college. My mom was first generation, like,
Okay.
all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I did grow up when I was younger in a town with no stoplights, like
Uh,
3,000 people, right?
wow, that's a small town.
Um, yeah, and it's interesting. I guess I mean this is like a whole other conversation, but my dad, because he grew up on our farm, our family farm, he thought that kind of education and being in touch with nature and all that was more interesting and cool than like being from like a big city, and like that's just not his thing.
Right.
But it did come with trade-offs, right? Where I was kind of like, captain of every sports team. I was, there was only 50 people in my classes. All the schools were connected. So the people around me, it was not a real business world, right? Like,
Right.
uh, you know, from a major city and all that sort of stuff.
Makes
So
sense.
that's what I mean by real role models is like I kind of had to figure out, well, how do I go from rural America where I'm like kind of this naive
On a
little like
farm, right?
in a bubble, right?
Right.
And then I go to college, I'm like, oh, these girls and these guys, like they mean business,
Right.
like they have designer bags, like dad's paying for whatever. And I'm just over here like, I'm so naive. Like I have no idea. Which is fine. But yeah, I think it shaped me in different ways, right? Where I think obviously when you're younger and you're going through something like that, it feels like a really bad thing. You feel really disadvantaged, right? But then I kind of started realizing that's what kind of makes me different, right? Like I actually understand what middle America's like. I understand what people are like. I understand what kind of the whole country is like. Um, and I was very curious about a lot of stuff, and I didn't really have a lot handed to me, right? I was very independent. I ended up getting college paid through my scholarship, as mentioned. I worked in college. When I moved to Los Angeles, I had like $0 and zero financial help, although probably could have been like, help me, but that's just not kind of who I was. And I think all of that has been a very big pro for entrepreneurship, and it doesn't make me wasteful. Um, I think it's an interesting idea as someone who plans and will be very successful, like how you can raise kids to have that kind of independence, even though you're a parent, even though you are going to be that successful. So I kind of think about what that looks like, but I think it's made me scrappy, which is good.
I love it. I love it. You remind me, yeah, you remind me of me. Maybe scrappy. Single, growing up, single parent, and of course, being Hispanic, and then me trying to like, I guess, be this. I mean, I can't do it alone, but a little dent in helping the Latino population and encroaching on the entrepreneurship and hopefully building generational wealth and all that. So I like it. You and I both scrappy.
Got to be
Love it.
scrappy.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes, yes. Scrappy's good. This is going to tie into an earlier point, which is why I wanted to ask you this question now. You did allude to you had a full scholarship and still double majored, but still felt disconnected or lost about your career, right? I think it comes down to that conversation about the expectation of when you graduate, and I was guilty. I thought I was gonna get 100 grand out of college, and dude, I definitely got hit with a reality check. So, what are the common problems students? What are the common problems about students, and why? Why is there that disconnect?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to answer that question. I think the biggest one, especially that I've learned being in this industry, is I do think there's a bit of a system issue, right?
Yeah,
Where people, the kind of the story that is told is you go to college to get a job,
right.
right?
Yeah,
And so unfortunately, I don't think that's necessarily the case. Like, yeah, sure, it'll give you kind of a stamp on your resume, but getting a job is about, it's not for fun. Like, people are not hiring you just because you got a degree, right? Like, they have problems and you're either going to help them make money or cut costs at the end of the day. And these are things that you just don't learn in school. Um, and you're hired to solve problems and like real business needs, right? And so I think that's the real disconnect. And I think the other disconnect is that schools operate in this unique world where they care so much about academics and honestly, staying alive, which means a lot of their money's coming from sports. The people I work with at universities, at career centers, et cetera, in my opinion, should be the most funded. They are the least funded because they're not making the school any money. So there's a big system problem kind of going on, right? And then when you get into the teacher level, they are so concerned about their academic teachings, their research. Like their class is about that. Like you have some that care about career and are open to using something like advise in their class to help their students. But a lot of them are kind of living in this research silo, um, which is not necessarily tied to getting an entry level job, right? So I think there's this kind of expectation, unfair expectation on universities where my major and my job, or my basically going here equals a job because it doesn't. Um, I do think the students need to understand there's a lot more that you need to do in order to kind of figure out that world. And that includes using your career resources and getting experience, right? School can be very academic.
I agree. Trust me, I worked in that world for dozens of years. I get it. I get it. And when I was a professor or part-time adjunct instructor, I made it. I
Mhm.
was very although I had to follow certain, curriculum, whatever, but I was always career orientated. And whenever someone needed a connection, I always did that. So I always kept that in the back of my mind. But I agree with you. Some folks live in that silo and all about research, 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 and what is it? APA, APA, APA. Because I'm already getting nightmares from that. I love that. That makes a lot of sense. Question for you as well. What are three career mistakes students make and how to avoid them?
Three career mistakes. I would say waiting,
Not doing your platform, not using your
not
platform.
using advice. Like you can
That's
go on
one.
there now for free. Hello, people.
Exactly. That's
But
one.
I would say like waiting, right? Like I think young people, there's kind of that internal conflict you have where you're like, I'm young, I got all this time. And like that's true, but also you have all this time. So like start doing something before you have all these extra responsibilities and things get harder and harder and harder. And starting could just mean volunteering. Starting could just mean doing something like advise or just acquiring some information, right? So you can kind of get a read on stuff. Um, so many schools I work with, most of the students come in panicking like junior or senior year, and that's kind of like, it's doable, but it's hard. Like kind of sprinkle it in sooner. So that. The second thing I would say kind of within that bucket is getting some sort of experience, right? Like if you really look at a 24-hour of a full-time student who's not working, especially, maybe 4 hours are school, right? Maybe. I don't know. I guess it kind of depends. Even if it's 8, like what are you doing with the other? You got a lot of day left, right? So even if you spend like an hour a day doing something, 2 hours a day doing something, I think that would be really useful. Um, I think another mistake is underestimating underestimating who you can meet and also building up your personal brand, right? So I think if I were a student kind of doing those two things together, I would start looking at LinkedIn and I would start connecting with almost like everybody that I know if possible, and even just getting to make friends sooner. Going back to that network piece, because all those people that you're working with are eventually going to go to get, going to school with, are eventually going to get jobs and become potential networkers. So, you don't want to be like alone. Like get out of your box and try to meet people and talk to people. And people are what are going to get you jobs later and everything else, especially with AI. So like you need people. And so if that's not you and that terrifies you, like maybe that's the action you should start taking sooner, is just starting to get to know people and like having the confidence to like go to lunch or whatever. And just being able to talk and be likable, I would say.
Those are great 3 or 3.5. Why? Tips. The only thing I want to add, which you did say, as far as meeting people, if I could go back in time, like advise my old self, as they say, that's always a common question, is joining organizations like a Alpha, Prosponica, National Black MBA a
Yeah.
lot earlier and not waiting till like 10 years in your career because, like you said, you could meet people and it's great for networking and maybe business partners or connections or clients, and all that. So meeting them a lot or participating, building your resume a lot earlier in my career. So that's my only thing I want to add to that. So
Yeah,
awesome.
and I like that, Dr. B, because I think it makes the whole networking and meeting people thing a lot less intimidating
Yeah,
because
of course.
you have a whole layer that's already been solved for you, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
People of like a similar type or
Right.
similar to you or something in common. So even if you are a terrified introvert who has never been on a date before,
Yeah. Exactly.
you can, if you like computer science and you join the computer science,
Club,
whatever,
whatever. Yeah.
club.
Club, right. Yeah.
Right. You can walk up to anyone in that room and be like, so what do you like about computer
Computer.
science? Right.
Exactly. Exactly.
And look up what open-ended questions are. That means you start your question with who, what, where, when, why, how, and that will kind of get the other person to have to say something besides yes or no. And that's like a very core, simple skill that I would say to use in those situations, even if you're not sure.
Love it. 5 W's and how. I learned that like in elementary school, and it still works today.
Learned it
All
in
right.
sales, learned it in recruitment. It's true. You got
It's
to get
true.
people to talk.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. That's right. You alluded to AI. We was not going to escape AI without a question. So, what does the future of career exploration look like? And I assume it would include AI, right, to an extent. What do you think about that?
Yeah. It's changing a lot, like everything right now with AI. Um, I would say the pros about it are, and not to like toot my own horn kind of thing, but I think there are resources coming out that are new and unique because, and like we're able to exist because of AI that are at your disposal, right? Like we're a free resource. You can go on and explore any career for free at your fingertips if you're a student. And that didn't exist before. And we wouldn't have existed in the way that we do without AI and the tools to kind of make that happen as a bootstrapped company. Um, the future of career research, I think I would say it's getting more complicated and I would say even harder on like the recruitment side because and maybe this isn't quite answering your question because this isn't about the research side, but it's about the application side. One thing that's happening now is we're going through this transformation and question in the industry of do resumes matter? Because now there are all these companies and bots that scour the internet for jobs and job titles and rewrite resumes and automate sending in resumes and job descriptions for you. So a job that you maybe would have applied to with like let's say 50 applicants could now be getting 5,000 applicants that all look good.
Yeah,
So, do I know what the future after that looks like? I'm not really sure, but I do think it's going to be more about people and networking and relationship building. And a couple of people I've worked with, um, just kind of pro bono or trying to help them out, they had no interviews from applying to, like, let's say 50 to 100 jobs. And then I kind of helped them go through their network and help them connect with people. And they got, a couple interviews with from less than 20 conversations, right? Because that person works at that company and they can refer you. So I do think going back to the college points, like getting to know people and knowing how to talk to people and network is going to be critical, I think, for all this.
I agree. Despite all the advances of AI and, like you said, automation and the fact that you can apply to all this stuff, yeah, I think at its core, you gotta be able to still network, right? It's still a human, human element to it, right? So I love it.
Mm.
I love it. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Um, I don't know. Nothing, I guess, in particular. I guess that I think even no matter how many degrees you have, I think the education thing, like I'm a big proponent of continuous learning. I think it's good for any entrepreneur, real estate
Mhm.
investor, parent, kid, student, whatever, right?
I
So,
agree.
and podcasts are a great way to do that, like in the car, whatever. I'm sure everyone here gets that, but I think sometimes you can get really busy and you can kind of stop, right? And maybe not get excited sometimes just because things are really busy, but I think learning and keeping up with stuff and continuing education is always a solid move.
I love it. Yeah, you're right. I got my doctorate about 7 years ago, but I'm always learning. I'm always joining masterminds, and I invested, in coaching myself. So so I get it. I think education is huge. So thank you for that. Where could people find more information about you, or advise, or both?
Yes. So LinkedIn, you can find me. It's just Emily McSherry, advise with a Z. I'll pop up. And then website is www.advisehub.com. So that's advise with a Z hub.com. And if you kind of want to just stay in touch as we're growing, stuff like that, best way to do that is probably our LinkedIn newsletter. So you can find that pretty easily if you go to our advice page on LinkedIn.
Got it. Thank you so much, Emily. Thank you so much. I enjoyed our conversation. It was awesome, and we'll make sure to, if I remember, we'll add the LinkedIn newsletter stuff in the description on YouTube. So awesome.
Great.
Thank you. Remind me. Thank
I
you.
will.
Emily McSherry, everybody. Thank you so much for being on my show.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.